Okay, this is section 4.8, and this whole section is about solving quadratic inequalities. So basically, we're going to graph our equation, okay, x squared plus 2x plus 1, and we're going to do that by using our calculator. And then since it's an inequality, then we have to shade either above or below the graph. So some quick reminders. Um, the very first thing we're going to do on all these is find where our x coordinate of our vertex is, and we're going to use negative b over 2a to do that. Okay, so that's the first thing we'll do. Another reminder is greater than will be shaded above our graph, less than will be shaded below our graph. And then remember, greater than or less than are dashed lines, greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, those will be solid lines. Okay, so the very first thing we're going to do on this is we're going to find our x value of our vertex, because that's going to give us a good starting point. So it's negative b over 2a, and in today's assignment, all of our equations will be in standard form. Okay, so remember, this is my a value, b value, c value. All right, so x is equal to negative b, so that's negative 2 over 2 times a, and my a value is 1. So that's negative 2 over 2. So x equals negative 1. That is the x coordinate of my vertex. Okay, and I don't even really know, I'm going to erase this. Okay, I don't really know until I plug this in what my y value will be. All right, so I just know that I'm going to have an axis of symmetry along the line x equals negative 1. All right, so now let's get our calculators out. All right, so in my y equals, I'm going to plug this in, x squared plus 2x plus 1. Okay, now let's go to our table, second graph. And I'm going to type in negative 1. Oh, okay, let me fix this real quick. Table set. All right, so I'm going to hit second graph on my table. I'm typing in negative 1, and it is 0. So here's my vertex right here, negative 1, 0. And we always want to use that as our starting point. Okay, so I'm going to hit my graph button. We want to graph this in our standard viewing window. So if you'll just hit zoom 6 to put it into your standard viewing window. There's my graph, but we can't just guess how wide or where my points are. So there's two ways you can do this. I can use my trace button, or let's just go to our table again. Second graph. We typed in negative 1. Let's just type in 0. So when I type in 0, my y value is 1. So I have the point 0, 1. And I also know if I have a point on this side, I have a point on the other side. Let's find one more point. Let's type in 2. So when x is 2, my y value is 9. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. I have that same point over on the other side. And then I'm going to connect those. Oh, before I connect those, this should be a dashed line because it's less than or greater than. So 1, 2, 3. So this is going to be a dashed parabola. It's not very pretty. And I'm supposed to shade greater than, so I'm shading above. Right? So that's what your graph needs to look like. And remember, I can do that on my calculator. I can graph it. Remember, if I hit my y equals and go over here and hit my cursors before my y, see how it changes when I press enter? I know I need to shade above the line. So it will graph that for you, but you need to know exactly where those points are. Okay, so let's do another one, example 2. So first, let's find negative b over 2a because that will give us our x, our axis of symmetry and our x coordinate of our vertex. So that's going to be negative 2 over 2 times 1 again, negative 2 over 2. So x equals negative 1. is our axis of symmetry. Is that the exact same one we did before? No. Okay, so there's my axis of symmetry. Let's go to our table. We're going to put this one in. So I have x squared plus 2x plus 4. Okay, let's go to our table, second graph, and let's type in -1 again. So my vertex is at -1, 3. 1, 2, 3. There's my vertex. All right, so looking at my graph, when I hit graph, there it is. So let's find at least 2 more points on this graph. So I'm going to go to my table again. I'm going to type in a number to the right of this. I'll just type in 0 again. So when x is 0, my y value is 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4. I know I have that same point on the other side. Let's get another point. Whoops. Let's type in 2. Okay, it goes up 12, so I'm going to go back and type in 1. So when x is 1, my y value is 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I know I have that same point over here on the other side. So now I can get the basic form of my parabola. Again, it's going to be a dashed line. This time it's less than, so it's going to be shaded underneath. Now, I could check my answer. I could pick any point at all in this shaded region. Okay, like the point 1, 1. And when I plug it in here, it should give me a true inequality. So when y is 1, 1 squared is 1, plus 2 times 1 is 2, plus 4, 1 is less than 7, and that's true. If I were to pick a point that's not in the shaded region, it would not give me a true inequality. Example 3. Let's find our vertex, negative b over 2a. So that's going to be -3 over 2 times -2, -3 over -4. So my x coordinate is 3/4. So I know my axis of symmetry, that's really bad, is at 3/4. Let me see if I can get it better. So at x is 3/4. There's my axis of symmetry. All right. So let's go to our calculator. I'm going to hit y equals, and I'm going to type in my new equation or inequality, -2x squared plus 3x plus 5. Okay, I'm going to graph that. Okay, it makes sense that it's pointing down. Let's see how far up this goes. So I'm going to go second table, and I'm going to type in 3/4 because that was my x value of my coordinate of my vertex, 3 divided by 4. So there's my 3/4. And it goes up a little bit past 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There's my vertex. All right, so let's find a few more points. This says when x is 0, I'm at 5. So if I have that point, I have the same point over on the other side. So do you see how I'm not quite over 1? So it's going to be somewhere around here, the same distance. And let's type in another number. Let's see. When x is 2, my y value is 3. So I have the point 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Let me make sure I... 0, 5. Yeah, okay. So then I have the point 2, 3. So I'm going to have that same point over here on the other side, the equal distance. So that's a little bit past 2, 1, 2, so somewhere around there. Okay, it's going to be a dashed parabola. That is not pretty at all, but you get the idea. It's less than, so I'm going to shade below the graph. Okay, and again, I could do that on my calculator. Y equals, I'm going to go over here. It's less than, so I want it below the line. Okay, and that's what we just graphed. Much prettier on the calculator. Okay, example 4. This time it says solve x squared plus 2x minus 8 is less than 0. So the first thing we're going to do, we're going to graph it again. Okay, so let's find our vertex, negative b over 2a. So that's going to be negative 2 over 2 times 1. So negative 2 over 2, that's negative 1. So I know my axis of symmetry is at negative 1. So let's go to our calculator, plug it in. I have x squared plus 2x minus 8. And I'm going to graph that. All right, so let's go to our table and find out what we get when we type in negative 1, because that's going to be my vertex. It's negative 9, so negative 1, negative 9. Here's my vertex. Okay, let's go ahead and graph this. Now, when we have problems where we actually are solving, the directions just said graph. When it says solve, we want to see where it crosses the x-axis. Okay, so let's see if we can tell by looking. It looks like it crosses at 2, and then it crosses again at what? 1, 2, 3, negative 4. 1, 2, 3, negative 4. All right, and let's just see by going to our table if we can pick out a couple more. When x is 2, when x is 1, my point is negative 5. So when x is 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I'd have that point over on the other side. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and draw in my parabola. Now here's what it's saying. They want to know, when is this graph below the x-axis? What values of x is my graph below the x-axis? Well, do you see that my graph is below the x-axis from here to here? All of this in between, this graph is below this x-axis line. All right, that's what they're wanting to know. We got these points, 2 and what was that, negative 4. You could do that by factoring, but we did it by graphing. So here's how you're going to write your answer. I know it's below the x-axis from negative 4 to 2. The way you write that is this. It's a solution set. So the solution set is all x's such that my x's are between negative 4 and 2. And we've actually written our answers like this before, but it's been a while. So it's below the x-axis from negative 4 to 2. And I know I went below because it said less than 0. Less than 0 means below the x-axis. Okay, let's do another one. Solve by graphing. All right. Well, we can find our vertex, negative b over 2a. So that's negative 5 over 2 times 1. So negative 5 halves. So negative 5 halves is negative 2.5. So this is my axis of symmetry. All right, I'm going to go to my calculator, y equals. Okay, I'm going to type that in, x squared plus 5x minus 6. This is what the graph looks like. Let's go ahead and find where it crosses the x-axis. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And at 1. Okay. Let's see where our vertex is. I know my x value is -5/2, so let's go to the table. When I type in -5/2, I get -12.25, so it's somewhere down here. Here's my vertex. All right, so when I graph this, it's going to look something like this. Now it says solve by graphing 0 is greater than x squared plus 5x minus 6. Or if I turn this around, because we're used to seeing it this way, they want to know what values is this graph less than 0. Less than 0 means below the x-axis. So again, do you see my graph is below the x-axis from this point until I get to this point. This, from here to here, my graph is below the x-axis, or it's less than 0. Okay, so my answer is going to be this point. So my solution set is x such that, that's what, -6? -6 is less than x is less than 1. Okay, example 6. I'm going to solve by graphing again. So let's find our vertex, or our axis of symmetry. -b, so -4/2 times a. So that's -4/4, -1. So my axis of symmetry is -1. Okay, let's go to our calculator. I'm going to plug that in. 2x squared plus 4x minus 5. Okay, let's go to our table and type in -1 because that was my axis of symmetry. So -1, -7 is my vertex. So here's -1, -7. Okay, now let's see by graphing where it crosses the x-axis. See if we can tell just by looking. Okay, it crosses at what? -3. 1, 2, 3. And at 1. Okay, now this time it's a solid line because it's greater than or equal to. So I'm going to sketch that in. This time they want to know, where is this graph greater than 0? So they want to know, where's my graph above the x-axis? Well, do you see that it's above the x-axis from here on? So from here all the way, all these numbers, it's going to be greater than. And from here on, it's going to be all those numbers is greater than or above the x-axis. Okay, so here's how I would write that. And you know what? When I graphed this, and I should not have assumed this, I assumed that it crosses at nice, neat numbers. Okay, it doesn't. It doesn't cross at what I say, -3 and 1. It just looked like it did. All right, so do you remember how I find those actual numbers? I'm going to go to second trace number 2. Let's find this point right here first. So I'm going to type in a number to the left of it. I'm going to type in -5. Right bound, I'm going to type a number to the right of it. I'm going to type in -1. And then I guess that it crossed at -3. You see it doesn't cross at -3, it crosses at -2.8. So really, that's going to be -2.8 is one answer. And then let's find out what that one is. Second trace, 0. Now we're finding this one, so I'm typing a number to the left of that point. I'm going to type in 0. I need a number to the right of this. I'm going to type in 4. And I'm going to guess where it crossed. I guessed that it crossed at 1. And it's 0.87. Okay, so my other point is 0.87. All right, so here's how we're going to write this. Okay, two ways I can write it. I know it's all the numbers to the left and then it stops at negative 2.8, right? So all the numbers, I'm going to write it like this. From negative infinity to negative 2.8, all right, unioned with, and now I'm going to start this one. That was 0.87, and it goes all the way to the right, so that's positive infinity. So I'm writing my answer like that. Okay? And when you have your assignment, I will tell you which ones cross at nice, neat numbers and which ones don't, that you have to use that feature on. Okay, we will work examples 7 and 8 in class together, and then I'll tell you what your assignment is in class.